greatest sports debate show on the internet.
Jalen Carter does not die for his knee.
He grabbed his knee, though, which was a
dirty play. That was a football play.
You don't get to talk anymore.
Football play.
You don't get to talk anymore, sir.
Championship rings, starring Brandon Lewis.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and welcome to Championship Rings.
And Josh Ungar.
Buddy. So, who was right about the Indiana Pacers making it to the conference finals?
Well, let's see. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, and Alex Burke gets hurt, and Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, and Josh Hart gets hurt. You have the easiest road to the Eastern Conference Finals this side of the Boston Celtics. So, were you right, or was it the NBA gods saying, let Josh Ungar be the only person in the world to pick the Indiana Pacers?
Nope, I was right from the beginning.
Begin now.
And the man is back. Ungar to the Max, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show. Of course, I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. Josh, welcome back, my friend. Glad you're feeling better. I asked for a bunch of topics. I didn't feel like we had a lot to talk about last week when Sean Fitzgerald filled in for you. And yet we got a boatload of things to talk about tonight.
Yeah, it was not fun last week. I was very sick. I had some type of stomach bug. And, well, I'm back. And I'll tell you what. We go from one game where Indiana pulls off their black magic again to game two where Oklahoma City was just in complete control from start to finish. I honestly feel like this series could end up going the full 7. And let me tell you why. Because we know Indiana plays a lot better at home than they do on the road. You could say that about any team, really. I get that. But it does seem like Neesmith, Halliburton, Siakam, Obi Toppin, a lot of these guys play better at home. But we know Oklahoma City is a very capable road team. So just like they did in OKC, I think the two teams will split games 3 and 4 in Indiana. OKC goes back home, wins game 5, playing for their lives. Indiana wins game 6, and we arrive at our first game 7 since the 2016 NBA Finals.
I agree with you on most parts, but I disagree with you on your final conclusion. In my opinion, for all intents and purposes, this series, well, it may go 6. I don't see it going 7. I still think it's over. I don't think there's any shot in the world the Indiana Pacers can win 3 out of the next 5 games. When I look at this series, Game 2 on Sunday night was what I actually expected Game 1 to be on Thursday night, which was, Oklahoma City comes out, they assert their authority, they take control of the game, and then I thought Indiana would give them more of a fight in Game 2. The Indiana Pacers, this series, Josh, they have played a total of 48 minutes. They have led for a grand total of 1 minute and 50 seconds, including 0.3 seconds in Game 1. In Game 1, going into the fourth quarter, the Oklahoma City Thunder had not played well at all outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and yet they still had a 15-point lead. And in order for the Indiana Pacers to win that Game 1, down the stretch, they needed a Miles Turner step back 3-point bank shot as the shot clock expired. B, an Andrew Nembhard free throw lane violation on the Oklahoma City Thunder to give Andrew Nembhard another free throw opportunity. They needed C, a Lou Dort missed wide open three-point attempt with under 30 seconds. I thought that would have gave them, I believe, a 5-point lead at the time. And then D, they needed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to miss that mid-range jumper, which he has hit all season and all night long, to give Tyrese Halliburton the opportunity to come down and make that game-winning shot. And again, it's not like the Thunder played great. Indiana was lucky, though, to only be down 15 because they committed 20 freaking turnovers in the first half. And they found a way to do what the Pacers always do, which is why this Indiana team will be remembered. This Indiana team will not be remembered, I'm here to tell you, by winning the NBA championship. They're just not as talented as Oklahoma City. And their superstar, I don't even know what he is because he disappears in the biggest moments, yet they're 1-1. And this series now, I agree with you. I think it's going to go back to OKC tied 2-2. But I would argue if you're Indiana, if you go back down to OKC 2-2, you're in trouble. Because in my opinion, the only way the Pacers can win this series is if they win it in 6. And for that to happen, in my opinion, they have to go back to OKC up 3-1.
Yeah. I've tried to make the argument Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar. To only have 5 points through the first 3 quarters, I'm sorry. You're not a superstar. SGA is a superstar. I question whether Anthony Edwards is a superstar. I know you guys had that discussion last week. But Oklahoma City knows that getting off the plane, SGA is going to give you at least 30 points a game. Because
I would say close to 30. I don't know about 30 every single night, but maybe there's some nights he has 25, but he has 10 assists.
Okay, but you're going to typically get at least 25 a game, typically. And he's going to get his teammates involved. That's part of the problem I think that Oklahoma City ran into in game 1 is that they became overly reliant on SGA at times. Like, hey, bail us out of this situation. Hey, make this shine because the shot clock is running low. Things like that. But let me ask you this. All season long, Oklahoma City has been using that double big lineup of Chet Holmgren. And
I was going to get to this, and I did not get to it in my opening soliloquy. I know where you're going. Absolutely, I thought it was a mistake by Mark Daigneault to make the lineup switch going into game 1. Did not understand it. Indiana has 2 bigs in Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. You have to match them big for big. And I'll be honest with you. I thought Oklahoma City going small in the fourth quarter when Indiana also went small as part of their comeback, I thought that was the move that actually cost the Thunder the game. Because in my opinion, as we saw in game 2, even though Kayvon Wallace did start, if you have Harmonsy in there and you have Holmgren in there, and Indiana, either they have both Turner and Siakam in there or they have one of the two, they cannot rebound. And the Pacers, again, outside of the flurry they had somehow in the fourth quarter of game 1, they haven't shot very well in the series at all.
No. We did see Oklahoma City use the double big lineup more in game 2. Not so much when Turner and Siakam were on the floor, though. They're using it more when it's just one of them on the floor, or if Indiana goes with Thomas Bryant and Obi Toppin.
Chet Holmgren is having his way with Thomas Bryant, by the way. I mean, Chet Holmgren did not show up in game 1, but he did in game 2. And as you commented last week while you were filling in for Fitz, you kind of thought the battle of Chet versus Turner / Siakam was going to be the key matchup to win the series. And I don't disagree with you on that, but I also think it's coming down to Indiana's bench, which was so prolific, obviously, with the Knicks and then, against Cleveland. They haven't shown up in these first 2 games much at all, besides Nesmith.
Yeah. Well, Nesmith starts for them, I believe. So, if I'm not mistaken.
You could be right on that. I don't know why I was thinking it was Benedict Marjoram, but I think you're right on that because it's Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith, Turner, and Siakam. So you're right on that.
Yes.
I guess what I was talking about was the role players, right? Outside of Halliburton, outside of SGA. But for Indiana, yeah, they can rebound the ball, and yeah, they can't turn the ball over. But the concern I have for them is this. In every series now, in at least one game, we talk about game 3 against the Cavs, game 5 against the Knicks. Here we go in game 2 against Oklahoma City. Tyrese Halliburton mysteriously disappears. And I don't know if you know this or not, Josh, but Tyrese Halliburton's success in the game is all based off if he makes the first shot.
Yeah, think about this. He's 5 for 5 in these clutch situations when he's had that shot with like 15 seconds to go or whatever it is. The rest of the league, I believe, is like 4 for 26 or 4 for 27, something crazy like that, which is where this whole Tyrese Halliburton superstar conversation kind of came from. Also, the fact that he was voted one of the most overrated players by his peers, which I think is ridiculous. I think that partially stems from the fact that he made the Olympic team and other players.
By the way, he, along with your boy Jason Tatum, did not play very much on that Olympic team.
That is true, yes.
I don't even know if Halliburton even played. He might have got some garbage minutes, but I don't remember him playing much, if at all.
Yeah, I don't really recall him playing, but I think that's where a lot of this superstar or not conversation kind of stems from for Halliburton. Indiana's got to take advantage of this opportunity, though, because I get it. Like, Boston's might not be the same. Cleveland is in flux a little bit, but Indiana's not going to have another year where they're shooting the three-pointer this well. And
I will put so much money on the line that the Indiana Pacers will not represent the East in the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals next year. They will not be the Eastern Conference representative in the NBA Finals next year. This is their year. This is their shot. I don't think they have a shot in hell. The only way they can is if, in my opinion, they steal both these games in Game 3 and Game 4. Do you realize that Oklahoma City was a 9.5-point favorite in Game 1? And even though Indiana won Game 1, OKC was favored by 11 in Game 2, and now they're favored by 5.5 or 6, depending on what sports book you get, on the road in Game 3 of the NBA Finals. That's absurd to me.
Yeah. I think that just shows how the sports bettors view Oklahoma City. That's not a slight towards Indiana.
I think it's a complete slight towards Indiana. I think it's telling you that Indiana has no shot. That's what the bettors are telling you. They don't believe in the Pacers. It's not so much as the Thunder are this God's great team, which they are historically. But if they had I guarantee you right now, they would not be a 5.5-point favorite on the road if they were facing a Cleveland or a Boston.
No, which, to emphasize the point you're making, I believe Cleveland was favored in at least 3 or 4 of the games against Indiana in the second round.
Games they were. So at least 3.
Yeah, by double. I know in games 1 and 2, they were favored by double digits.
Well, I don't know about Game 2 after the injuries.
I think the Cavs were still double-digit favorites, if I remember correctly. But regardless, though, it's certainly not what I was expecting for it to be 1-1 going back to Indiana for Game 3. I can tell you that.
No, I thought it was going to be 3-0. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was going to be 3-0. I thought Oklahoma City was going to punt Game 4 and win it at home in the Paycon Center in Oklahoma City in Game 5. I do think, even though I've been talking crap about the Indiana Pacers all of this segment, I actually think tomorrow night they play their best ball. I think they win. And I think they could win tomorrow by double digits. And I think Game 4 will be a lot like the Minnesota series and the Knicks series was in both of these conference finals, where it was like, could Indiana and OKC go up 3-1? They're going to be very close games. I think Oklahoma City pulls out Game 4 in Indiana. And so by virtue of that, I think game 3 personally will be the last win the Indiana Pacers have of this NBA season. I think they'll go up 2-1, and I want what Golden State did to Boston in 2022. They will win the next 3 and wrap it up in 6.
I definitely could see that happening, but I just think on their home floor in game 6, Indiana will pull it out, force a game 7, Thunder win it on their home floor.
See, here's my thing. If you're going down 3-2, I know the Pacers are the comeback kings. I don't think they really believe they could win a game 7 in Oklahoma City. So I think they will be mentally deflated going into game 6.
That's an interesting perspective. So before we move on, let me ask you this. Based on what you're saying, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway. Who has control of this series after the first 2 games?
Easily Oklahoma City. They're the better team. They're the better squad. Obviously, I think that will change if the Pacers win both games 3 and game 4. What I'm very curious right now is I think in terms of MVP, right, Oklahoma City, SGA would clearly be the front runner to get it if they win. Let's say the Pacers go up 3-1 in this series somehow. Let's say Indiana pulls it out, but let's say Tyrese Haliburton does have these pedestrian numbers of like 12 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Who on Indiana is your front runner right now? If they were to win the finals to be MVP, is it Nesmith?
I don't know. Because we saw Siakam really take control in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's why he won MVP in that series. But he hasn't had that same type of impact against Oklahoma City. It depends a lot on if Haliburton hits any more of those like clutch shots. Because if he does, I think he wins it. But otherwise, maybe Nembhard? Honestly.
Maybe.
But I'll tell you this, though. We saw Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins really get going in game 2. Alex Caruso had like 20 points, and Aaron Wiggins was hitting some big three-pointers for the Thunder. Can they do that on the road? Because, again,
I think they can, especially Caruso, because even though you guys may say it's a fake championship or whatever, he is an NBA champion. And he did it in the bubble. And he was huge for that Laker team. I reiterated last week on championship rings. I never thought they should have let Alex Caruso go, personally. And I think he's invaluable to what Oklahoma City does.
Because, as I said at the beginning, role players play differently when they're on their home floor versus on the road.
They do, except for if you're a Pacer or you're a Thunder.
That's true. So I really think, and I'm not just saying this because the series is tied 1-1, but I think game 3 is pivotal in that sense because of the role players. Like, if Oklahoma City can get that same type of performance out of their role players, like a Caruso, like a Jalen Williams, like an Aaron Wiggins and some of those other guys, then I would fully agree with you and say, yes, they've got control. But if you get some of the role players like an Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, and some of those guys for Indiana playing well, we got a little bit of a different story on our hands.
Well, let me say this. I think of control as, I know it's 1-1, but the Thunder are clearly the better team, and they have dominated the first 2 games of this series outside of one quarter, which, again, you could make a case that Indiana, once again, had to have a lot of lucky things happen to them just to have an opportunity to hit a game-winning shot.
Yeah. I can't explain what Indiana is doing.
I can't explain it. I've never seen anything quite like it. We should have added this as a topic, so I made a new banner of it, Josh. I wanted to ask you this question. I totally forgot to put it in the rundown. What do you make of the NBA Finals presentation? Now, by presentation,
it's horrible.
I mean by, like, I'll go all the way to the halftime show. the pregame introductions, the national anthem, the introductions, the things on the court. Like, I saw this tweet, and it was accurate, and I don't remember who posted it, but it's true. If somebody woke up from a coma and turned on game one of the NBA Finals, you would have thought it was Pacers Thunder on a random Thursday night in January. You would have had no idea that the NBA Finals were happening. And I know they're going all this digital technology and the YouTube TV ads. And, they try to put a little logo on the court, the little Finals trophy on the court in game two. It looked even more stupid. I don't know why the NBA / ESPN, ABC, whoever decided to go this route, went this route. But it is seriously for ESPN to have the exclusive rights to the finals moving forward, including next year when they go into their new media rights deal. This whole thing, the halftime show is a joke. It's not even a halftime show. It's Kendrick Perkins and Stephen A. Smith screaming at each other and then 12 minutes of commercials. Like, it's a complete disaster.
It really is. Like, think about this. For the in-season tournament, teams get these special courts, and a lot of them look really cool. And then for the freaking NBA Finals, nothing? Like, do you remember for example, the 2007 NBA Finals, when we played the San Antonio Spurs, the center court logo had a giant Larry O'Brien trophy.
Yes.
It said the finals on the court. But my favorite part of the finals broadcast was they would actually show the player introductions.
Yes, they would do the national anthem. I mean, it was a spectacle.
And I hate to say this, but I feel like it's kind of the same problem with the Big Four all over. The World Series has kind of lost that nostalgia or whatever word you want to use there. To a certain extent, the Super Bowl has lost that a little bit. I feel like the halftime shows have been going downhill. The team introductions aren't great like they have been in the past.
I think the Super Bowl is more personal preference of your opinion of who the artist is performing. That's just my personal opinion.
I'm talking about the overall, the team introductions I think have gone down for the Super Bowl also. I didn't love the team introductions for the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Maybe it's because my team was in it. I thought it was awesome. I couldn't tell you.
No, if you loved it, I understand that. Maybe it's because your Eagles were in it, but it just kind of felt bland and all that. But and the Stanley Cup, it used to say Stanley Cup Final on the rig. Now it doesn't even have that. So I don't know. Oh, we're gonna put little Larry O'Brien trophies on the court. You could tell those were CG.
It was bad. They used to do, even a few years ago, they would do the CGI, but it looked so real you couldn't tell. And then they move it around between halves or between breaks or whatever, between the finals and then the Larry O'Brien and then the YouTube TV ad. What actually bothers me the most outside of the court is the player introductions. The fact that they just literally have them on the screen and it's right before the game and there's no pregame, no nothing. They just go from the pregame show right to Mike Breen, essentially right to tip. That bothers me.
Yeah, which by the way, I hope they don't take Mike Breen off of the broadcast. I think his calls are fantastic during the finals.
They won't take Mike Breen off, but I think ESPN will certainly need to make a decision on Doris Burke and Richard Jefferson. I don't want to get into that. That's more of an off-season conversation. I don't want to get into it. I have strong opinions on it, just like I do about this entire NBA media rights deal as a whole, and I know I've shared them with you in the past.
Yes. I loved the trio of Mike Breen, Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy. I thought that was a fantastic trio.
Speaking of the NBA and their new media rights deal, so Adam Silver was on FS1's Breakfast Ball last week with Craig Carton, Mark Schwartz, and Danny Parkins. And he pretty much all but confirmed in that interview that the NBA All-Star Game in 2026 is not only going to happen in the afternoon because they are partnering with their new media rights deal with NBC, who is going to air the Winter Olympics right after the NBA All-Star Game. And it does sound like, by the way, the game could also be on Saturday as well, as opposed to Sunday. But because of the Winter Olympics, they're going to do what many fans have called out for, of USA versus the world. And I have been consistent on this, and I've talked about this. I know me and you have talked about it and debated it. I still do not think this is going to solve the NBA All-Star Weekend. I know it is supposed to be about patriotism and fighting for your country, and a lot of people in the U.S. are going to be very scared that the U.S. does lose to the world. But I'll make two arguments here. Number one, it's not like you're defending your country. It's not like you are playing for a gold medal where it's the official Olympics. This is an all-star game. It's one night. It really doesn't matter in retro perspective. And number two is, yeah, it is different when you have U.S. versus just Canada or U.S. versus just France, as opposed to U.S. versus the world. Because the last 7 NBA MVPs, if you count the multiple ones of them, have been from players that were born not in the United States. And when you put a team of the world up that we currently have with SGA, Luka, Giannis, Wemby, Nikola Jokic, like that is, you can make an argument outside of maybe LeBron, Steph, the 5 best players in the NBA. So, like, do I expect the world to possibly win that game? Would it shock me if they do, because you're combining all the countries into one and we're very old? No, I wouldn't suspect it. Now, I have other thoughts on why I don't think it's going to work, but I want to give you some time here.
So I'm a little bit different. I think it will work. How well, I'm not sure. So I disagree with you, but not fully, if you get what I mean. Because I get it, you're not playing for a gold medal, or it's not FIBA or the Olympics. I understand that, but still, you watch international basketball, players care about playing for their country. I also hear what you're saying, that it's not, Jokic isn't specifically playing for Serbia. Wembanyama's not specifically playing for France. Luka's not specifically playing for whatever. I can't remember what country he's from off the top of my head.
Slovenia, I think.
Okay. Giannis isn't specifically playing for Greece. Trust me, I understand fully what you're saying in that regard. But I do think the players would have pride in coming together and playing as an international squad, whereas the Americans, at least to a certain extent, would take pride in, okay, I'm playing to represent my country. Not, again, are they going to be fully 100% bought in? No, I don't think so, because again, it's not for the Olympics, it's not for FIBA and full international play, but I think they'll care more than you believe they will. So, 2 other things. Number one, and I brought this point up a while back when this was first rumored, is, how are we going to get legitimately 12 world all-stars that actually deserve to be all-stars? And are there going to be guys that wouldn't be all-stars in regular years become an all-star this year to fit the format? I think that is a real debate. I think some USA players are going to get snubbed. Maybe they're mentioned as all-stars, but they're not allowed to make the team. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I don't think it's going to be fair.
And the other thing is, I'm sorry, this may be controversial. I don't care. I think out of all four of the major sports, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, the NBA and all four major sports have the players that least most care about their country. And in my opinion, we have evidence of this going back to social issues, going back to 2020. And we know what went on in the bubble. We know what went on with the NBA when it came to the COVID pandemic, the bubble, the George Floyd situation, all of that. In my opinion, the NBA players, just because of where most of them lean politically and from their comments on the flag and other social issues, again, to me, unless you are putting them in a gold medal situation where they must defend their country, they are not going to play all out for Team USA in a game that is basically meaningless. And so it's an all-star game. And so, again, are you going to have this handshake deal where it's like, okay, we're just going to let everybody do dunks and all that for 3 quarters, and then we're going to really fight for 1 quarter to see who the true, best players in the world are? Or are we going to see a 4-quarter, actually well-coached basketball game? Oh, and by the way, if it's Team USA versus the world, who the hell is going to coach the world team?
Yeah. Because you did see, like, with USA versus Canada in 4 nations, those guys care. And that was one of the best games.
This is why it's different. And this is because, here's the thing. I think, personally, hockey is still viewed as Canada's sport. And America, because of our tensions politically with Canada, especially at that time, we wanted to show we're still the best. We're USA, we're pride, and we want to show that we care because we want to beat the Canadians at their own game. And that's why 9 million people tuned into that. That's why I think it's double, maybe even triple the amount of viewership that single game has gotten compared to what the Stanley Cup Finals got. Because America, in my opinion, and the data shows this, if you listen to National Sports Time talk show hosts, that America really doesn't care about hockey. They cared about the fact that we were defending our country in hockey because we don't watch other Olympic sports. And we watch during the Olympics because we want America to do well. With other countries in basketball, they respect, like Argentina, France, whatever. They do respect the NBA, and it's seen as a global game. Like, I think the way we care about hockey is the way the Canadian fans care about football. Except the NFL is on such a...
Hang on there, partner. Hang on. You say people don't care about hockey. Then tell me why 16.3 million people watched Game 7 of the 2024 Stanley Cup Final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers, where the Edmonton Oilers were trying to come back from down 3-0 to
there
become...
you go. That's why.
Hang on. To become the first Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup since 1993. If people don't care about hockey, why almost 17 million people tune in to watch?
Because
tell me that, partner.
Because it was a Game 7. There was nothing else on television that night.
Oh, don't give me that bullshit.
No, that's the
Don't give me that bullshit.
No, that is the complete reason why, because it was a Game 7. Go look at the difference between Game 6 and Game 7 and tell me what the numbers were.
Don't give me the bullshit of, there was nothing else on.
Well, that's why. I guarantee you, if that was going up against, that's why they don't run against the NBA Finals, the NHL, because they get crushed by it. That's why the Edmontons and Panthers Game 4 is on Thursday and not on Wednesday.
So Game 6 averaged 4.2 million.
Oh, I see. So, yeah. Big difference, exactly. So the only difference between Game 6 and Game 7 was that it was a Game 7. That's it.
Okay, that's still 4.2. That's almost 5. So you can't tell me that there's not an audience. We'll get to the hockey. Ay.
Shall we move on? Shall we talk about, there we go. Let's talk about Jason Kidd here. This is a strange one. Obviously, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau, which I don't know if you were listening very much when me and Fitz did the segment last week. I actually was for it. I think that Tom Thibodeau is an old defensive, grunt man, and the Knicks need new offense, and they need new blood. I don't give a rip about the Villanova Knicks. They overachieved, in my opinion, this year, and I think the front office made the decision that if they were not going to win the championship heading into the playoffs, that Tom Thibodeau was going to be fired. But in my opinion, this thing comes out of left field, and I have a hunch, Mr. Ungar, I have a hunch that the only reason why Jason Kidd could potentially become a member of the New York Knicks is because the New York Knicks brass have been in contact with a certain superstar who is known as Giannis Antetokounmpo. And they have made it very clear that to Giannis, if they get Jason Kidd, they will find a way to pry him out of Milwaukee. I think that's the only way it makes sense for Jason Kidd to make this move.
Well, the Dallas Mavericks don't have to say yes to the Knicks. They can say, nope, Jason Kidd is not leaving. We've got Kyrie Irving coming back. We've got Anthony Davis, if he can stay healthy. We got Klay Thompson. We've got Cooper Flag on the way. We're not letting Jason Kidd go. They could tempt him or basically steer him away from the Knicks by having him sign another contract extension or something. But, you know, he does have a relationship with Jalen Brunson, but I don't know if Jason Kidd would be that much of an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. I really don't.
Offensively, he would. I don't think it'd be the difference with the Knicks over the top next year. Again, I think they need another good player. I think they need a Kevin Durant, or I think they need a Giannis. For Jason Kidd, I'd look at it like this. Yes, I'm going to have Kyrie Irving. Yes, I'm going to have Anthony Davis. Yes, I'm going to have Klay Thompson. And yes, I'm going to have Cooper Flag, who I think, and I've already been on record, I think Cooper Flag could be the next face of the NBA. That's how good I think he could be in 3 to 4 years. But that is 3 to 4 years from now. And you look at the West versus the East, we've already talked about this, how much deeper the West is than the East. If you're Dallas, because of the injury situations and the histories of Kyrie, AD, and Klay Thompson, you basically have 1 year to win the championship, which is next year. So does Jason Kidd want to try to win the title next year in Dallas in a very loaded West? Or does he want to try to get just back to the NBA Finals with a very good Knicks team, which if they run it back, theoretically they could make the finals. But again, I think in order to win the championship, and if I'm Jason Kidd, in order to go there, I need reassurance. I don't think Kevin Durant would be enough to get Kidd to make the move. I think it would be the guy that he had a relationship with, that he coached in Milwaukee, who apparently loved him there when he was the coach, and that's Giannis. But I can't believe the Bucks would be willing to trade Giannis to the Knicks. I just don't believe that.
No, I don't think the Bucks would do that. Plus, I don't know if
the only way they would trade Giannis to the Knicks is if Giannis says, boys, I don't want to be in Milwaukee anymore, and the only team I want to play for is the Knicks. Then I think maybe.
I don't know if the Knicks have enough to get the Bucks to do a deal for Giannis. I don't. When I look at what the Knicks have, they only have one.
I think it would be Cat, Anunoby, and a couple of firsts.
As far as I know, the Knicks only have one first-round pick because of some of the deals they've made for Cat.
Because of the Mikal Bridges trade mostly.
And Mikal Bridges. So I don't know if the Knicks have enough I don't think the Knicks have enough to get the Bucks to do that deal. I don't.
Let me ask you this: if you're in Milwaukee, do you sit there and you go, if we get Cat, we're probably punting next year, but for the next couple of years, we could get Dame, Cat, OG, maybe get some more talent around him, get another first round pick. Is that enough?
I don't think so. I don't know. After the year Cat had, I'm not sure.
Here's the other thing, though. If you're Jason Kidd, as I just talked about, yeah, I got Cooper Flag, who could be great, but we really don't know yet. We're projecting. Yeah, I got AD, I got Kyrie, and I got Clay, but I got to go through OKC. I got to go through potentially Houston. I got to go through potentially Minnesota. I got to go through potentially the Lakers, potentially the Clippers, potentially the Spurs, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens if a San Antonio or a Houston, like I mentioned, get Giannis? Then what do I do? Then, in my opinion, you go straight to the East.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is are the Spurs willing to give up like Castle to potentially get Kevin Durant or Giannis? I don't know. The Spurs are the best positioned to get Giannis or Kevin Durant because they have the 2 lottery picks. They have some tradable contracts, but is that what Milwaukee is looking for? Phoenix will take anything at this point. It feels like.
I think Phoenix is about to unload Durant here as soon as the finals ends. I can see it happening the very next day. They may already have a deal in place for the team. We don't know.
If I had to guess, they already have a deal in place with San Antonio, I think.
See, I don't know if they're willing to trade Durant in conference. I would think that you would trade Durant to the Knicks.
I can't see them trade anybody in the East having the assets to trade for him.
See, to me, if I'm Phoenix, I take Mikal Bridges and picks, and I rebuild. I would even talk about trading Devin Booker, and I'd completely tear the thing down.
I mean, you did just hire has he ever been a head coach in the NBA?
No, he was an assistant with the Cavs.
Yep. And I know the other assistant coach is a candidate for the Knicks, but it does sound like they really want Jason Kidd. And it's going to come down to, do the Mavericks allow them to talk?
Here's the thing. If I'm Jason Kidd, if I talk to the Knicks, I'm not coming back to Dallas. If I talk to the Knicks, I'm getting the job. So I basically have to find out from the Knicks if it's my job to lose, and then I have to talk to the Mavericks and find out, are you going to allow me to make the decision or not?
Well, the Mavericks would have to trade him to the Knicks.
Well, here's the thing. There's no way they give Jason Kidd permission to go talk to the Knicks, and then he doesn't get hired by the Knicks, and then they bring him back. I don't see that at all.
This all comes down to the Mavericks. Do they allow him to talk with the Knicks? Tomlin's not going anywhere. We know that, but oh boy, as if they didn't already have enough drama by trading for DK Metcalf. What do? After weeks and weeks of, is he going to retire? Is he going to go to the Minnesota Vikings? He finally said, okay, I'll go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh boy. And week one, it's a double revenge game because you got Aaron Rodgers go. Hold on.
You're breaking up, Josh. Oh, I think Josh's Wi-Fi just left, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off this segment here with Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, which this was something that me and Josh had obviously anticipated over the past few weeks. and Aaron Rodgers had dragged this out. If you guys remember, I initially thought it was going to happen, on the Pat McAfee big night out spectacular in Pittsburgh. But apparently, Aaron Rodgers was the third choice for the Steelers, right behind Matthew Stafford and Justin Fields, which that Justin Fields story is wild to me. Don't really understand that unless they completely lowballed Justin Fields. But to answer the question on screen here, in my opinion, no, I do not believe Aaron Rodgers will help the Steelers win their first playoff game in a decade. Now, did he play better at the end of last season as opposed to how he started the season with the Jets? Yes, but Aaron Rodgers has not been a good quarterback for the last 3 years. Ever since his last year in Green Bay, he didn't even get to the Packers to the playoffs. You guys remember that week 18 game when they took on the Lions in Lambeau. It was the game that if the Packers won, they would make the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers lost that game. He leaves Green Bay. He goes to the Jets. He obviously plays, 4 snaps in that first season, comes back the second season and misses OTAs. It's off to a bad start with Robert Saleh. Now, the thing with Pittsburgh is I think Aaron Rodgers will have a lot more respect for Mike Tomlin as a head coach than he had for Robert Saleh / Jeff Ulbrich with the Jets. And I don't know how he's going to get along with Arthur Smith. I know a lot of people in the league respect Arthur Smith as a play caller. We saw what he did with Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry under Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. He was not a great head coach in Atlanta. Nobody understood why he never figured out how to use Bijan Robinson or Kyle Pitts there in Atlanta. But we know Arthur Smith's foundation of offense, right, is the run game. And I'm sorry, I'm just checking my phone to see if Josh texted me. Let's see here. He says he's going to try restarting his computer. We saw Aaron Rodgers, what he did in Matt LaFleur's offense, which is a very similar offense to what Arthur Smith did in Pittsburgh and what he's done his whole career, right? Which is the 2 tight end sets, 2 wide receivers. And I do think Aaron is going to have a lot more respect for Mike Tomlin, but I don't know what's going to be the case here. Does Aaron Rodgers run the show offensively? We'll see. I just think the Steelers, man, it's like, yes, they have DK Metcalf, who will be the best wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers that he's had since Devontae Adams his last year in Green Bay, because the Devontae Adams he was with the Jets last year was not as great of a typical wide receiver that Aaron has had. We'll see if they bring in Alan Lazard or another veteran. They do have Robert Woods on the roster. I do like Brett Freiermuth, the tight end. And listen, the Steelers' defense is not going to be like the Jets' defense last season, which was overhyped and overrated and could not get any stops. And they were borderline deplorable, especially after Robert Saleh was fired. The Steelers' calling card is defense. And we're going to get to TJ Watt here in the next segment, but, they do have Watt. They have Alex Highsmith. They have Darius Sway. They have Joey Porter Jr. They have Patrick Queen. So they have a lot of versatile defenses. We know Mike Tomlin's defensive culture. Like, they're going to be in a lot of one-score games. They're going to basically ask Aaron Rodgers to be a better version than what Russell Wilson and Justin Fields were for them last year, which was, hey, manage the game, don't turn the ball over, run game, play action, make quick decisions. And I think that they think that Aaron Rodgers' IQ, his football IQ, he does not turn the football over a lot. We know he has the most throwaways in the NFL, since he's been in the league, that Aaron does not turn the football over. So I think that's what the Steelers are going to ask Aaron to do. But I don't think it's going to be enough for them to make the playoffs and win their first playoff game in a decade. You look at the AFC, we can already pencil in my estimation, the following teams for the postseason. Those teams being, obviously, from the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. From the AFC West, I believe the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. From the AFC North, I believe the Baltimore Ravens. And yes, I do believe the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow will bounce back and will make the playoffs. And then from the AFC South, I believe you can pencil in CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans because he is the best quarterback in that division. So that is 6 teams. The Texans, Ravens, Bengals, Chargers, Chiefs, Bills. I think, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, those are your top 6 quarterbacks in the AFC. Then, with Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, for one spot then in the AFC playoffs, you are fighting with potentially an out-of-nowhere team like a Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville or a Cam Ward in Tennessee. We'll see what Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos do this year. I really like what Pete Carroll and the Raiders have done with Geno Smith and Ashton Gentry, and they still got Max Crosby and the coaching infrastructure that team has brought on. I really like what Mike Vrabel has brought to New England and given Drake May weapons, especially Travion Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. I'm not as big of a believer as much as Tua and the Miami Dolphins this year, but I look at it like Pittsburgh is, to me, fighting with New England and Las Vegas likely for that number 7 seed in the AFC playoffs. And if they get into the playoffs, which they probably would have to get in at 9-8 at that point, they're going to be annihilated by a Buffalo or a Kansas City, whoever wins the number 2 seed in the AFC at that point. So I think the Steelers are the definition of mediocre. They're the definition of being content with never having a losing season under Mike Tomlin. I know the majority of the fan base in Pittsburgh doesn't like it, but that's where we're at. And I think that, as I said, going into last offseason, I thought it was time for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers to part ways. I thought they needed a new offensive identity. They have led the league in spending money on the defense side of the ball, which, in my opinion, in 2025 is the wrong side of the ball. They have led in defensive spending the last 3 years. You know what teams have led in offensive spending? The Los Angeles Rams, who have won a Super Bowl, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who just won Super Bowl 59 and went to Super Bowl 57. By virtue, the Pittsburgh Steelers have not won a playoff game since 2016, and their last playoff win was over Matt Moore and the Miami Dolphins. With that being said, if Josh comes back on, we can move back to this Aaron Rodgers topic. I'm going to be moving to some contract disputes in the NFL as we head into training camp with Terry McLaurin and TJ Watt as mandatory minicamp has kicked off. Both of these players are in the last year of their contracts. Both of these players would like to be paid. Both of these players have not been paid yet. As I do see Josh here, it seems like has entered in. Let's see. It says they will need to connect their microphone and cam before they log on to the stream. Sorry about the technical difficulties here, folks. This is what you get for doing a live YouTube show. See if we can get Josh in here before we move on to the next topic. Oh, and Josh just disappeared again. Okay. Let's move on here, folks, to Terry McLaurin and TJ Watt. As I mentioned, they were both in training camp. They are both missing mandatory minicamp due to potential contract disputes. I do not think there is any chance Terry McLaurin gets traded out of the Commanders. I think he's viewed as their number 1 wide receiver. I know they traded for Deebo Samuel this past offseason, but in my opinion,
there we go.
There we go. All right, Josh, welcome back. We'll talk about this in a second. I'm going to go back to this here and talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. I said, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to my monologue there for about 10 minutes or not, but bottom line is, no, he's not going to help them win their first playoff game in a decade. They are going to be competing, in my opinion, for the last wild card spot in the AFC. If they get it, they'll probably go 9-8 again. I think it's going to be status quo. They'll lose to Baltimore, a Buffalo, or Kansas City in the first round.
We knew this was happening. It was just a matter of when. So when the news dropped, I was like, okay, and shrug emoji. Like, nothing really more to say about it than that. You know, we know who the top teams are in the AFC. It's Kansas City, it's Baltimore, it's Buffalo. Don't really know who that second group of teams is yet. We think it's going to be the Chargers. I want to put Houston in there, but after their drop-off last season, I'm not 100% sure.
I think Houston by far has the best quarterback in their division. I think they're going to win the division.
You would think so, but like after what we saw from them last season, I'm not 100% sold on them overall. But then you have like the LA Chargers, I think, are going to be right back in the mix. Denver's going to be right back in the mix. Could we see Jacksonville? I heard you mention them. You know, Cincinnati, maybe, if they actually figure out their defense.
Oh, I think the Bengals are going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to be very much improved.
Given what's going on with Trey Hendrickson and Jermaine Pratt, I'm not sure. I don't trust their defense. I think they're going to be very reliant on Joe Burrow and that offense scoring 40 to 50 points a game, which is, to me, is just not realistic. I agree with you about New England. I don't trust Miami. I would love to say Cleveland, but the Browns are a mess. So it's going to be, I would put the Raiders ahead of the Steelers right now. I would put the Broncos ahead of the Steelers. I would put New England ahead of the Steelers.
I don't mind that. I think all those teams are in a clump with Pittsburgh for that potential last wild card slot. Let's talk about Terry McLaurin, TJ Watt. They're not in mandatory minicamp. They both want contract extensions. I don't think there is a chance Terry McLaurin gets traded. I think that he is the number one receiver for them. I know they went out and they got Deebo Samuel, but Jane Daniels is on a rookie contract. I think they know how valuable Terry McLaurin's been. He's been with the franchise when they were knee-deep in Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz and Alex Smith and trying to find the quarterback of the future. This other one, though, I am surprised more people are not bringing up the fact of which I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should actually trade TJ Watt.
Interesting.
I think he's 31 years old. He is on the decline. He has had injuries the past 2 years. And Josh, we talked about the Steelers' playoff woes and how they have not won a playoff game in a decade. The last playoff game they won was against Matt Moore's Dolphins in 2016. Do you know TJ Watt in his last 4 playoff games? Guess how many sacks he has?
2?
1. That's it. 1 sack.
See, I understand why you believe the TJ Watt stuff is the bigger story, but I'm actually going to go the other way and say Terry McLaurin's more the bigger story here. And that's partially because I'll bring your Philadelphia Eagles into the conversation because I think this Terry McLaurin stuff directly affects them. And here's why. I don't think the Eagles are going to trade for Terry McLaurin. I'm not suggesting that. The Commanders wouldn't be that stupid. But you know that the Eagles and Commanders are going to be fighting each other for the NFC East division title. The NFC East hasn't seen a repeat division winner in years. And a lot of people believe the Eagles will be the first team to do it. Rightfully so. But you look at why Washington got to the point they did last season, it's because of the chemistry Jaden Daniels formed with Terry McLaurin. So that's why I actually view Terry McLaurin as the bigger story, because it not only affects the Commanders, it affects the Philadelphia Eagles, and I believe it directly impacts the state of the NFC, because if the Commanders have McLaurin, you gotta say they're one of the top teams in the NFC. But if they lose Terry McLaurin, I would put the Rams ahead of them. We'll see what happens with the NFC North. We'll get to them in a minute with Minnesota and Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit. All four teams are very capable. Tampa Bay, I don't think, is going anywhere. And we'll see what happens with Atlanta and possibly an improved Carolina team. And then, like I said, with the NFC West, you got the Rams. We'll see what and we'll see what happens with the Seahawks, 49ers, and Cardinals. So I really do believe Terry McLaurin is the bigger story, because it doesn't just affect the Commanders. It impacts the Eagles and the rest of the NFC. Notice that I didn't mention the Cowboys.
Yes, but here's why I don't think it's a big story, because I don't think he's leaving at all. I think there's 0% chance. I think that they're just playing a negotiating tactic here between both sides. He will be signed. May not be the first couple of days of training camp when they get into July. It may take until the start of the season, but there is no way in hell Jaden Daniels does not have Terry McLaurin out there week one.
I'm going to rejoin on my computer. I got it working.
Okay. He is on a rookie deal. Jaden Daniels is. They don't have to pay him. So, in my opinion, there is no shot in hell that as young as Terry McLaurin is, he's not going anywhere. For TJ Watt, he's 31 years old. I know the Steelers are defensive culture, and knowing the Steelers, they would pay him. But I'm just saying, could you trade TJ Watt for a first and a third? Maybe get an extra offensive lineman and actually rebuild your offensive line. You already have Darius Slay. You have Alex Highsmith. You have Cam Hayward. You have Patrick Queen. There are defensive pieces there where it's like, in my opinion, if the Steelers were smart, they shouldn't have invested in Aaron Rodgers. They should have just went with Mason Rudolph this year, went under 500, got a new quarterback, and stop trying to spend the most money that you possibly can on defense and being an irrelevant franchise.
I do like that they drafted Will Howard, the quarterback out of Ohio State.
Oh, stop. He's not a legit NFL quarterback. He's just not. You guys are all fooled by Will Howard, the guy that played at Ohio State that won the national championship last year. Show me one tight window throw the guy made, because I'll tell you right now, you won't be able to find one. Will Howard is a prototypical college quarterback who is at best a third-string quarterback in the NFL. He's nothing.
I'm not saying he's going to come in and turn into a star or anything like that, but he could be a solid starting quarterback. We don't know.
I can't believe you, as a Penn State fan, actually think Will Howard's a good quarterback.
He made some good throws late when Notre Dame was on the comeback.
Yeah, going up against Notre Dame, whoop-de-doo. Notre Dame's not that good.
No. We should have beaten them in the semifinals, and it should have been a rematch between Ohio State and Penn State, but well, that's James Franklin for you.
Show me one throw Will Howard made under pressure.
I wish he was playing in this game against Texas. By the way, that's where College Game Day is going to be for Lee Corso's final appearance.
Speaking of Texas, we got to go down to Texas. We got to go down to Houston because all the Browns fans are upset. Oh, my God. I can't believe we're losing Nick Chubb. And this is why you Browns fans, this is why you'll never win a Super Bowl. Because this is why you losers are, because we lost our to the team. We lost our running back. Did you not watch Nick Chubb last year? And I'm not talking about you, Josh. I'm talking about the stupid idiot fans out there that are drunk on Sundays that don't even watch the game. Do you not realize Nick Chubb had a piano on his back last year running? He looked like a broken down old man. It was sad. Okay, I get the Browns' offensive line was terrible, but Nick Chubb was not the same running back. He is not the same running back. And you just drafted two electric running backs in Dylan Sampson, who I really like out of Tennessee. And then I think Junkins could be a hammer like a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery situation like they had in Detroit. So I'm actually going to defend Andrew Berry on this one. It was time for Nick Chubb to go.
The writing was on the wall the moment the Browns drafted not just one running back, but two.
Thank you. Why is everybody so sad? Why is everybody so confused? Do these idiots not pay attention to the media?
He was not the same after his injury against the Steelers.
Thank you. Oh my God. Your Browns fans are literally in tears. Like, Nick Chubb won you one playoff game. This is Baker Mayfield all over again. This is why these losers, you guys root for losers because you guys have never seen a winning team. And I don't mean to be a dickhead. I know it sounds like I'm going to go to the biggest dick in the world, but it's just the goddamn truth here, people. And I'm sorry I'm swearing, but it is.
The Browns are sad. They really are. They're not. Honestly, I look at, their schedule for 2025. I got them going 6-11 at best.
Oh, that's generous. And by the way, in my opinion, they would go 6-11 if Shedeur Sanders starts. Yeah, I have seen winning teams, Jalen. By the way, your team drafted two running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And by the way, you guys lost Frank right now. You guys are sad about it. You're not bawling your eyes out over it. Oh my God, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb was not making a difference if you win or lose the Super Bowl or not. You know who is? Can Shedeur Sanders play in this league?
Yeah. And it's so what's sad, legitimately sad for the Browns is watch. They're going to start probably Joe Flacco, if I had to guess. At some point, Shedeur's going to be on the field because Jimmy Haslam's going to stick his nose where it doesn't belong, and that's how it'll end up.
Oh, I disagree. I think Shedeur should start week one.
I
think Shedeur's the best quarterback on the team. I'm here to say I think the Browns franchise and my thoughts on them will completely change if Shedeur Sanders starts for them week one. I'd pick them third in the division over Pittsburgh.
The Browns are pathetic. They really are. It's like they want me to just sit here and be like, how can I root for this team? How? I don't get it with them. But
here's the thing, though. Outside of Deshaun Watson, what other move was that pissed you off that much?
Not at the time. It didn't piss me off, but of course now it has. Trading Baker Mayfield, but who knew he was going to become what he has with Tampa Bay?
Well, because he had the weapons and the infrastructure in Tampa, and he has an offense that fits him, unlike what it was going to work in Cleveland. I keep telling you people this. It was never going to happen in Cleveland. Good for Baker. He found a home for him. Guess what? Baker hasn't made it past the divisional round in Tampa Bay either. So, yeah, they may have had some good seasons. Baker Mayfield's not an all-pro quarterback.
No. The Browns haven't really done any other moves that have pissed me off. Actually, yes, they did. When they drafted Johnny Manziel.
I'm talking about recently in this regime. See, you guys take everything back. Oh, my God, 30 years ago this happened. Nobody alive really cares about what happened 30 years ago. The only thing you guys should care about right now is Shedeur Sanders should be starting week one. Because he seriously, he might be better than Cam Ward. He might be the best quarterback in this draft.
Good
and you
Lord.
got him in the 5th round. The problem is, for whatever reason, Kevin Stefanski loves Dylan Gabriel, which I don't understand because he's a little twerp.
But I want to take this from the Houston side of things. Because they already have Joe Mixon, so you're bringing in another running back. They're trying to go with the 2 running back approach, kind of like what Detroit did. And
yeah, I think this will be very similar to what Ezekiel Elliott did in New England. I hate to say it. I think this is Nick Chubb for last season.
It would not surprise me. Do I think it'll make a huge difference for the Texans? No. Maybe
they don't have a great offensive line either, so.
No, but will it allow them to maybe do the play action game more? Perhaps, but overall, I don't think it makes a huge difference. Houston is still 4th or 5th in the AFC, arguably, behind Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo, like we said earlier. It's okay. You know, is it disappointing that he's not in Cleveland? Yes, but it's not surprising.
Who was the one that 2 years ago when we first started this show said the Browns should have traded Nick Chubb?
Yeah, you did.
All right, let's go to this question now. 2 NFC North quarterbacks, 2 sophomores. One of them played a rookie year. One of them did not. Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy. In my opinion, the answer to this is actually very clear. It's Caleb. And
really,
the reason why I say that is this. The Bears have a new head coach named Ben Johnson. If Caleb Williams does not work out, it's not on Ben Johnson. It's on Caleb. Caleb was so heavily touted coming out of school. I have loved him. I voted for him last year at USC. I talked about how good I thought he was going to be this past year with the Bears. It was not meant to be. But Caleb now has to live to the hype. We're giving him a pass for year 1 like we gave Jared Goff because Jared Goff had Jeff Fisher. Caleb Williams had Matt Eberflus. Jared Goff got Sean McVay. I believe Caleb Williams now has his Sean McVay in Ben Johnson, and the Bears have too much talent for Caleb Williams to not be a good quarterback. So if Caleb does not get it right this year, it's on him. JJ McCarthy, yes, the Vikings won 14 games last year. Everybody thought it was a fluke. They have good weapons, but nobody expects them to be as good as Green Bay or, Detroit or maybe even Chicago if Caleb lives up to that expectation. The Vikings kind of came out of nowhere. There's always this thought the Vikings are going to regress back where the Bears should be coming up. That's why I say there's more pressure on Caleb. Also, Minnesota's going to give JJ McCarthy probably a year or 2 more weeks than Caleb.
See, I hear you with everything you're saying about Caleb Williams, and yet I still say it's JJ because of the fact that the Vikings had Sam Darnold in their building. They could have franchise tagged him. They could have signed him to a contract extension. After fighting, going right down to the final game of the season, where they were in position to potentially get the number 1 seed and have the road to Super Bowl 59 go through U.S. Bank Stadium.
And they were proven to be frauds.
But they did all that with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. Now JJ McCarthy has to go in there and cut and fill those shoes. That's why whether you believe the Vikings were frauds last year or not, I'm not saying I believe they weren't frauds, but I'm also not saying that they were. On this one I'm somewhere in the middle. But that's part of the reason why I believe there's more pressure on JJ McCarthy. You got a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, I believe, in Justin Jefferson there. And he's going to want to have a big season again. You have what I think is a solid running back group. Brian.
Nobody expects them to win 14 games again, though. Where the Bears, I expect the Bears to win 9-10 games. I expect the Vikings to win 8-9 games. I just think that that's what they should have won last year, and they overachieved.
Like I said, I think because of the success, whether it was fluky or not, that remains to be seen. Because of how high the bar was set by Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy has to come in and get somewhat close to that bar. Somewhat. Whereas the expectations, I get it. Chicago brought in Ben Johnson. They drafted Colston Loveland out of Michigan. They drafted Luther Burden out of Missouri. They have the 2 running backs. I get it. They've got all the weapons around Caleb Williams. But still, the expectations, I don't believe, are extremely high for Chicago.
Oh, yes, they are. Their playoffs are bust.
See, whereas I think the expectations are much higher for Minnesota because of the last season. Again, whether you believe it was fluky or not, they still ended up getting 14 wins.
All right, I'm going to let you try the bus on this next topic because I don't know where you want to go with this. Money in the Bank, we know we disagree on wrestling a lot, so I'm going to let you drive it, and I'll give my opinion on whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, first of all, I love my personal favorite match outside of the 2 ladder matches. My favorite match and the one I was most interested in coming into the show was Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch, because I think they've had a solid feud. I really enjoyed the promo battles that they've had, and I thought it was a really good match. But my problem with the ending was not that Becky won. I think that was the right decision. But if Becky wants to cement herself as a heel, I wanted her to win in more heelish fashion rather than just simply winning by surprise roll up and grabbing the tights.
Isn't grabbing the tights heel fashion?
But it didn't get me to go, oh, Becky, how could you do that?
That's fair.
It didn't get a major reaction out of me. Whereas with some we've seen heels win matches in fashions where you're like, how could you do that? What? If they slam them on the back with a chair or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can't fight anything you just said.
Yes, you will get truth. Which, okay, we're going to get right to this. I don't think this was a work at all. I think this was much like what you and I debated last year with Cody and them switching it. I think this was the same thing. WWE heard the backlash and everybody saying we want truth, and they're like, "Oh damn, we gotta bring him back." I don't think this was a work. I don't think this was, let's do this and get the reaction. No, I think this was WWE being like, "Oh shit, we're gonna get trashed for this. We gotta bring him back."
I agree with you, and I also agree with the never seen 17, the 17-time world champion John Cena, that everybody will once again forget about our truth once this storyline is over. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised.
Wait a minute. Who is this R-Truth that you speak of? I don't know. He's Ron Killings.
Yeah, and I think that's a clear sign that this was not a work. They're bringing back Ron / R-Truth for one last run. Listen, I was upset that the fact that he was in a storyline and they let him go, and it felt kind of weird. But it's again, I was not going to lose sleep over R-Truth being released. I may be in the minority. I wasn't. I'm sorry. The fan base, though, does have a voice. And unlike the previous administration, WWE does seem to listen a little bit more to their fan base. And I won the main event. I thought it made sense. Now, for them to not run it back with him and Cena right away, and for them to go with Cena and Punk is a little odd to me, because I thought you'd capitalize on it and do Cena and Truth again and not the champions in Saudi, but they're going in a different direction.
Yeah, I'm very surprised they're going with Cena and Punk at Night of Champions. I thought they would save that for SummerSlam because that's such a big match.
Well, I already told you what the SummerSlam match is going to be, and I believe this now more than ever.
Cena versus Cody.
And Cody wins the championship.
Yeah. By the way, it would not surprise me if they go in the direction of, especially now that Gunther has the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, what did you think about that? I was legitimately shocked. I thought there was no chance. I thought it was a good shock, personally.
See, here's why I think they did that. It's because Sammy is going to win that championship from Gunther at SummerSlam. But who's going to ruin the celebration? The visionary, the architect, the Monday Night Messiah. By the way, that was my favorite version of him as a heel.
He's basically bringing it back now. I mean, isn't that what this gimmick is? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. It's going to be hard for him to top what he did during his feud with Kevin Owens, though. That was my favorite version of him as a heel, was specifically in his feud against Kevin Owens. But that aside, Seth Rollins cashes in, wins that championship, and at WrestleMania 42, which is going to be in Vegas again. Oh my God, C-Boss and I burst out laughing when they actually confirmed it.
We already talked about the reason why a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to rehash the reason why. I'm pissed too.
But
your computer's acting up again, Josh.
I think it's because they're going to versus Cody. God damn it. Seth versus Sammy at WrestleMania for the championship, and that's where Sammy wins it.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I was a little bit upset when Rollins won the Money in the Bank briefcase because I thought it was kind of obvious, and I thought that, LA Knight should have won the briefcase, in my opinion, because LA Knight's been the runner-up 3 years in a row, and I think it's time for LA Knight to be a world champion. And I was upset that CM Punk and Sami Zayn did not interrupt and cost Rollins the briefcase the way Solo Sikoa did to, the way Jacob Fatu did to Solo Sikoa. But it all makes sense now. And I think you're right. I think Sammy could win the King of the Ring and challenge Gunther. I also think it's possible you could do Cody Rhodes winning the King of the Ring, and that's how you get to Cena. Maybe you have Cody versus Randy Orton in the final since they're on the opposite side of the bracket.
You very well could. I think my computer is just being slow for some reason, and I apologize about that. But let me know if we're good.
You're still
but overall, okay. I did really like Naomi winning the Money in the Bank, by the way, because I think that's going to lead to her cashing in on Tiffany Stratton.
See, I disagree, Josh. I think she's going to cash in on Jade Cargill. Sorry, you're breaking up. I tried to step in while you're breaking up because you're really breaking up again. I think Jade is going to win the the Queen of the Ring. She's going to beat Tiffany Stratton at SummerSlam. Naomi's going to cash in. Josh, I'm assuming he's going to go back on his phone here. We're going to have to wrap this thing up here in the next 5 minutes anyway. Starting with the technical difficulties tonight we've had on championship rings. But yeah, I thought personally that Roxanne Perez was going to win the Money in the Bank contract. And I wanted to see them go. But now that Naomi's won the briefcase, I think Jade is going to win the Queen of the Ring. She's going to beat Tiffany Stratton, and Naomi's going to cash in on Jade.
So you think both cash-ins will happen at SummerSlam?
I think it's very possible. Night 1 and night 2, right? You're going to create a buzz.
See, I think it's not going to be that she cashes in on Jade, although I totally get what you're saying. I actually think it's going to be that Bianca wins the championship, and somehow haven't quite figured that part out yet. But Bianca's going to win the championship, and Naomi tries to cash in, fails, and you somehow get to a triple threat match for the championship. Jade, Bianca, Naomi.
I agree with you on the triple threat. I just think that Naomi would be the champion.
I have Bianca as the champion going into it.
I think Bianca gets upset that over the last year, Jade's been champion, Naomi's champion, and she couldn't pull the deal off against Io Sky.
That's definitely a valid point. It's totally valid.
All right, take us home by talking about the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes, I was very upset that even though you and Fitz aren't hockey fans, you didn't talk about it at all last week. This is a rematch of last year's classic Stanley Cup Final where Edmonton came back from down 3-0 in the series to force a Game 7, and they came up short, losing 2-1 against the Florida Panthers, who won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. They are running it back this year. Florida absolutely whooped Edmonton last night 6-1 after 2 overtime thrillers up in Edmonton, with Florida stealing Game 2 in double overtime thanks to Brad Marchand, who was traded from Boston, ironically, to Florida before the trade deadline. And Edmonton is looking to win Canada's first Stanley Cup since 1993. Think about that. We got Edmonton, Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Calgary, and Vancouver. None of them have won a Stanley Cup since 1993. It's been all American teams. And I get it. Hockey is more popular in Canada. And we talked about it earlier. Game 6 had 4.3 million viewers. But people still care about the Stanley Cup Final. I understand it's number 4 of the Big Four. I understand that. But hockey has a bigger following than you think. But when I look at this series, Florida's in complete and total control. I think they win Game 4 and go up 3-1. I got at Florida winning the series in 6. It's not going to a Game 7.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up because we went late tonight. We almost went an hour and a half show. What a wild show. We had a lot to talk about. We'll dive into more of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals next week, assuming that we have more time. We'll get into, obviously, the NBA Finals. We may be talking about a champion for both the NBA and the NHL next Tuesday on Championship Rings. For Brandon Lewis, host of Brandon's World, for Josh Ungar, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show, Ungar to the Max. Ungar, sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for willing to hop on your phone. And we got through it, my man.
Yes, we did.
All right, and with that, we'll see you guys next Tuesday on another edition of Championship Rings.
Bye-bye.